In this lesson, we'll start getting your local system set up to take this training course and learn some useful things along the way. Just to be clear though, we're setting up a learning environment and will not be using production settings. To install Couchbase Server, go to couchbase.com/downloads to download Couchbase Enterprise Edition 5. Choose your operating system, and then download and install the assets as required by your operating system. Or, if you prefer to work with a containerized instance, visit couchbase.com/containers. When you run the Couchbase Setup tool to set up a new cluster, you'll assign a name for the cluster, along with an admin username and a password. You'll provide the hostname and IP address, or accept the defaults, as well as paths for the data and index files, unless, again, the defaults work for you. Then you'll assign memory quotas for each service, and indicate whether to use standard or memory-optimized indexing. For detailed information on memory quotas and indexing, check out our documentation and online articles. Once your installation process is finished, your browser should open to the admin UI at localhost 8091. Navigation's on the left. The UI opens on the dashboard where you can quickly review cluster-wide metrics. The server screen lets you add, remove, configure, and rebalance the nodes in your cluster. The bucket screen lets you create and manage these top-level containers and their documents. The indexes screen lets you review the definition, type, and status of each of your indexes. The search screen lets you define full-text search indexing and run test queries. The query screen is a full-featured UI for building and running nickel queries. The XDCR screen lets you define, filter, and manage data streams between your Couchbase clusters. The security screen lets you create users and assign security roles. The settings screen lets you control a wide range of settings, from compaction behavior to sample data deployment. And the log screen gives you log file access through the UI, as well as a tool to gather cluster-wide or node-specific diagnostic data. In the opening lesson of this course, you'll have found downloads for the workbook, lab projects, and JSON data used in this lesson. If you haven't already, download these files to your desktop. You can go back to the intro lesson if you need. And then throughout this course, you will follow the workbook to complete each lab and use the JSON data file as instructed. Now, adding a bucket to Couchbase is easy. Just click Add Bucket, and then specify the name, the per-node memory quota, the type, whether that is a persisted Couchbase bucket, a non-persisted in-memory ephemeral bucket, or a more limited cache. Then you'll set your replica count, up to 3, remembering that replicas never reside on the same node as their active document, so you must have as many nodes in your cluster as your chosen replica count. Then you can choose your XDCR conflict resolution method, choose whether you want not recently used documents fully ejected from memory, or if their key and metadata should remain, and choose whether this bucket should have higher priority relative to other buckets, and if you wish, choose bucket-specific compaction settings, overriding the cluster-wide defaults. Now, if any of this that we just covered seems kind of new to you, go take the CB130 course, Essentials of Couchbase Engagement Technology, for an overview of Couchbase. Last, you can choose to allow data in this bucket to be purged, which is useful during development, but likely a bad idea in a production system. So you've got a choice. The basics of setting up a user for security purposes are straightforward. On the security screen, add a user and assign a username, password, and then one or more security roles. Now in this course, we take a very simple approach and create a bucket-specific user account, which has full access to the bucket. More granular, network-integrated approaches are possible, but they're beyond the scope of this course. Couchbase Enterprise Edition includes a powerful new tool, CB Import, for bulk loading data into buckets. Data can be loaded from external JSON or CSV files in a variety of formats and approaches. Very helpfully, this tool lets you define document ID generation patterns based on data extracted from each document. Also very helpfully, CB Import is wicked fast. This course teaches how to access documents both directly via API calls using document keys, as well as how to execute queries using NCL, which is SQL for JSON documents. NCL relies on indexes for document access. If you want to execute arbitrary, ad hoc queries, your bucket needs to have a primary index. If you have the index service in bucket available, you can create this index easily with a simple statement. Primary indexes are particularly useful during development. In production, though, you would likely drop primary indexes to reduce maintenance load in favor of specialized indexes for the specific queries that you require. To get a solid introduction to NCL, take our free online course, CB110, Intro to NCL for SQL People. We also offer deep hands-on NCL training courses if you want to reduce project risk by ensuring your team gets their code right the first time. We built the workbook for this release of this course using Node.js 8.9.0 long-term support version, but any Node version should work. You get Node here at nodejs.org. You'll see us using Sublime text in our videos and screenshots, but we've avoided using anything that's bound to a particular IDE in this course. You can work with whatever code editor you prefer. For REST API testing in this course, we're using a great tool named Postman. You can download it at this URL, which is also shown in the workbook, or you may have your own tool that you prefer. It's time to get to work. Download the course files and Couchbase and any other tools you need, and then jump into the workbook to complete Lab 1, importing your data and getting yourself set up for the lessons ahead. When you're done, come on back. In the next lesson, we'll talk about configuring your code to connect to a Couchbase cluster and bucket and get documents by API.